Like, did this book have a plot? It is an assault to the eyeballs. But here we are. I mean, you should really expect this from this channel at this point. Hey friends, it's Robin. Welcome back to my channel. We're doing the first round of recent reads today, finally. First of all, I'm sorry if you can hear the kitten eating. She is right beneath me. She's decided this is breakfast time. Two, I reorganized my library. I did an entire office reorganization. I actually showed it over on my Instagram. I didn't save it or anything like that, but we finally have the nice background back where you can actually see both my shelves, which I really like. I have a lot more space to film, which is nice. So this is going to be the setup moving forward. I'm really happy with it. So hopefully we're not doing any more office reorganizations. Third, I want to I want to address the fact that I have been, or I had been, I guess, past tense, teasing the fact that I had this massive vlog coming, and that's kind of what we're covering today, is all the books that were supposed to be in that vlog that is just, it's never gonna see the light of day. I'm really sorry, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, I am scrapping the vlog where I read a bunch of romance readers' favorite books of the year. There are a lot of different reasons that I decided to scrap this video. I'm not gonna go into them or anything, but there are reasons. I decided to scrap this video. It's not happening, but we're gonna cover all of the books, all except for one, which is gonna be in the next round of recent reads. We're gonna talk about them, what I rated them, what I thought of them. So we're gonna talk about the two DNFs and then go through in the order in which I read them. So that's the little caption of what is about to happen. So let's get right into the reviews. Like I said, let's just get the two DNFs out of the way. First of all, I DNF'd Anastasia by Sophie Lark. I tried reading this. First of all, this book is just, it's so long. It is so fucking long. And it's one of those books that is, it's not just that it's slow burn, but the entire thing itself is very slow. And so I was in part two, and our heroine was still 13 years old. And just the idea of reading another 550 pages in order to get to the romance in the last 20% of the book, it was too much for me to take on. I was really bored. The world building is kind of excessive, as well as some of the descriptions and things like that, and I felt like we were spending so much time going over all of these descriptive things that it felt like nothing was happening. And so I put it down. It wasn't for me. This is now the second Sophie Lark book that I've DNF'd, so I'm kind of unsure about whether or not I will pick up another book of hers. If I do, it's going to be in the form of a vlog, because I'm going to be doing another vlog series throughout this year. But yeah, so DNF'd that one. And then the other DNF is actually one that I have some very strong opinions about, and that is A Back in a Spell by Lana Harper. If you follow me over on Instagram, you watch me DNF this in real time. I have a very negative feeling about this book. This is the third book in the Thistle Grove, Witches of Thistle Grove series. And in this book was pitched as a pansexual, non-binary romance. And I was so excited for that. And this book did an absolute shit job at the representation, in my opinion. This book opens up with our heroine, who is trying to get back into the dating world after getting out of an engagement with her longtime girlfriend. Her and her best friend are sitting at this bar, and they decide that they are going to set her up on a date that has very low stakes. So they're going to find somebody that isn't a normal person that you would go out with, and go out on a very casual date with this person. And they come across the other main character's dating profile, and I believe our other main character's name was Morty, if I'm remembering correctly. And they had their profile set up with their pronouns, and their pronouns were listed as he/they. And our heroine tells the reader that because he is listed first, she is going to only refer to them as he. I kept reading the book, and I was like, one, I didn't like that. It's not up to you to decide somebody else's pronouns. They were very clear about the fact that they go by both, and apparently it continues throughout the entire book, is that they never once use any other language other than he, him, dude, guy. And it just pissed me off that they're going to pitch this as non-binary romance, and then genderize the entire book. Like, that was such lazy writing. It felt very rude. It felt so demeaning to the other half of that person's identity. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. It's almost like they wrote the book as an MF romance, and then at like very end, they were like, we should make it non-binary, and then they threw in that sentence about how Morty's pronouns were he, they. Like, that's what it felt like. It made me mad. So that is it for the DNFs. I wanted to get those out of the way because they were some big downers, and I wanted to get those out of the way. But the first book that I finished this year was Backdraft by Cole McCade. This is book 10 in the Criminal Intention series, and I'm obsessed with this book, this series. This was 5 stars. Of course it was 5 stars. Every book in this series is 5 stars at this point. You've heard me talk about this book a ton. I'm not going to repitch this story to you again, but this book ended in such a way that I am desperate to get into Crescendo. The last 2 books are like a part 1, part 2. It's like the season finale, and I'm absolutely desperate to get into them. And I'm trying to like make my way through this week's TBR so that I can get to it before my next little TBR thing starts. So hopefully I can get into that 11th book super soon. But book 9 was, I don't want to say a filler book, but it was more an emotional journey with Sanjay. And this is them getting back into like detective work and things like that. And then shit hits the fan. And I'm very, very excited to see where it goes from here. But 5 stars, absolutely loved this. Another 5-star book, which I did read for that vlog that no one's ever gonna see, was Mile High by Liz Tomford. I had been seeing this go around everywhere over on Instagram. Caitlin from the Love Librarian has hyped up this series so much, and I can see why. This was worth all of the hype. It is quite long. This book is like 500 pages long, but it was worth every single second. This is following our heroine, who is a flight attendant for this NHL team. And one of the superstars for like the team that she is flying for is this like rude playboy type of guy. And when she is giving like the flight instructions to him, he tries to like get her to do things, and he's used to like women fawning over him, and she pushes back. And the two of them end up having this kind of like butting heads sort of situation. I don't want to say enemies because they're not ever really enemies. They just kind of butt heads a little bit. And she thinks he's super arrogant, and he desperately wants to like get under her skin. And he's a very like oblivious hero. He does not realize at first that he is falling for her. And this romance is so cute and swoony, and I loved every second of it. Our heroine is fantastic. I loved everything about this book. I I could go on forever about all the things that I liked about this book, but I was obsessed, and I can't wait to continue on with the next book. Then we have the one book that I have physically, and this is going to be a little painful for some people because I know this is such a well-loved book, but I read A Love Letter to Whiskey by Candy Steiner, and I gave this 2 stars. I did not like this book. There's so many things about this book that I did like. I thought the actual romance in here and the entire look at right couple but wrong time was a really interesting thing to explore in this book, but the actual choices made in the storytelling pissed me off. It's called A Love Letter to Whiskey, okay? Like, it is written kind of in letter way. The beginning has this little prologue where the heroine is like all dramatically telling you about how, you know, she fell in love with this guy, but I'm going to take you back to the beginning. Then you pop into all of these different stages of their romance through time. You get one in high school, one in college, and a couple of them as adults. The thing that pissed me off about this book so much was that it didn't commit to this whole like I'm telling you a letter thing, and instead it would like pop in and out of it. And so the prologue is the heroine telling you she's going to tell you a story, and then chapter 1 is you in this romance, and then every chapter ends in this really dramatic monologue that would remind you that she's telling you a letter or story, and then it would pop back into the actual story again. And so it just felt like I was on this roller coaster ride of like sinking into their story, and then at the end of the chapter having this like really dramatic reading that would take me out of the story, and then I'd have to start the process all over again. On top of that, the amount of whiskey metaphors in here was straight up irritating. If I had to listen to one more whiskey metaphor, I was ready to like shred my book. Every single chapter ended on things like, but as we all learn at a young age, what goes up must come down, and oh, how we crashed. And every chapter ended in this way, and 90% of them ended up with whiskey. Here, I just opened up to a random page. By the time I figured it out, too long turned to too late, and I remembered all too well the other way whiskey can burn. And like, it didn't need to be bashed over my head to this extent that she referred to him as whiskey. Like, it, by the end, I was so annoyed by this book. And like I said, it's unfortunate because the actual romance portions of this I liked them. But the style choices were so frustrating that I was left just finishing this book and being like, I hated this experience reading this. Back to another 5-star book after that unfortunate rant is Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher. This is a book that I picked up because people on Instagram actually voted for me to read this for the vlog. That's not happening. And it was 5 stars. And I'm really glad that this ended up winning because this is a book that I put on my TBR, but I don't think I ever would have picked up on my own because I thought that this was like strict high fantasy. And y'all, this has a romance in it. And it was so good. I didn't know what to expect going into this. Everyone had said that this is like a cute, fun, cozy fantasy, but for some reason, like this cover did not like give me those vibes. But this is so cute and fun. I loved this. And on top of that, I normally hate like travel fantasy, and this is 100% travel fantasy. And I didn't even realize it until the book was over because I was so obsessed with with these characters and this world and this story. This opens up with our heroine who is desperately trying to get out of the situation that her late husband's family has put her in, and she ends up drawing this sword, and when she draws the sword, a man appears in front of her, and it turns out that this man has been living inside the sword and is now bound to protect her, and it is the two of them trying to get her out of this situation where she feels very trapped and get her the inheritance that she was promised. And the two of them end up having a romance, and it is so funny and different and cozy, and I loved every second of it. I loved the audiobook. I loved all of the characters. T. Kingfisher's ability to like build a world and then have you invested in the smallest little side characters is unparalleled. I understand all the hype for T. Kingfisher. I'm absolutely going to continue on in this series world. This is kind of like an overarching world with a bunch of different series tied into it. And then one after this, I think, is the Paladins series. Absolutely going to read that. I'm very, very excited to read more from this author because I loved this book. After that, I read Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin, which is an audiobook that I have owned for years. And I finally read it, and I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. This is one that I was a little torn on when I finished it, because there were a couple of things in here that like weren't my favorite, and I thought that this did drag on a little bit, but Pam Godwin's ability to pull off this twist ending without me seeing it coming, I couldn't give this anything lower than a 4.5 stars. I did not see that coming, and it was so well done. This is definitely a darker take on pirates, and there is a lot of trigger warnings for sexual assault in here. Once we meet the second love interest in here, I was convinced that there was no way, absolutely no way that Pam Godwin could pull off a romance with these characters because all of these characters suck. Like, they are awful human beings. All of them do super shitty things. The like other hero in here assaults the heroine at one point, and like I thought for sure. I was like, there's no way I'm gonna get into this. Somehow at the end I did. And I do want to note here that like at no point in time am I condoning any of the behaviors in this book, because no one should ever have to experience a single thing that happened in this book. This is fiction, but I got on board in the end. Another super surprising one was Captive of the Horde King by Zoe Draven. This was a series and an author that I had never heard of before, and I gave this 4 stars. I really, really liked this. I'm gonna talk about this here. This cover is a crime. Okay, like this is atrocious. It is an assault to the eyeballs, but the insides are really great, and I am going to continue on with the series. I've already downloaded the second book. This is an alien romance, and in this one, we're following a heroine whose brother ends up doing something that is against the law on the planet that they are living on. And the Horde King comes to their village, and she ends up sacrificing herself to the Horde King in order to like protect her brother. And she thinks that she is going into this really terrible situation. Turns out that the Horde King is taking her as his queen, and he treats her like a damn queen. They definitely start off as enemies, and there is some dubious consent in here at first, but the way that the hero, the alien hero, worships the heroine just stole my heart. I loved it so much. And just watching these two like get to know each other, this totally has like Khal Drogo, Khaleesi sort of vibes to it, and I really dug it. Then another one that is going to be, I think, a bit disappointing for people. I read Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt, and I gave this 3 stars. I'm gonna be honest, I don't understand the hype for this book. This book was so mediocre. I felt like this book did nothing. Like, did this book have a plot at all? Because I couldn't find it anywhere. I listened to this on audio and I listened to it in a day, but I won't lie. I put my headphones in and I was doing other things, and I would find myself like tuning out occasionally and like coming back in. It wasn't even like when I would tune out and come back into the book where I'd be like, oh no, what happened? Because nothing ever happened. This book is following this heroine who is a comedian. She needs to fake date her manager who has been harboring feelings for her, and she's been harboring feelings for him, and they fake date. And that is the plot of the book. That's it. I thought this had some interesting things to say about women in comedy, I guess. I don't know. I feel like I have nothing to say about this book because it was fine. And then lastly, I read The Gravity of Us by Brittany C. Cherry, which I did give 5 stars. This is a classic Brittany C. Cherry book, and I thought it was great. She always nails that like slightly forbidden sort of emotional romance so well. I think her writing is really beautiful. I think her characterizations are really well done. And I loved this couple a lot, and like the entire situation surrounding them was something I had never read before. So this story is about our heroine, who is Sunshine, and our hero, who is a grumpy dude, and his wife ends up walking out on them right after she gives birth to their daughter, who is extremely premature. Our heroine ends up helping him out and becoming his nanny, and the two of them have this kind of like forced proximity, forbidden sort of romance. And I'm not going to say anything more because there is a reveal that happens like very early in the book, but I think if you go into it not knowing it, it does add a little bit to the book. So I really liked this one. I had a great time, 5 stars. Okay, so that is a wrap on the first 10 books that I read this year. Like I said, all of these were supposed to be talked about in a vlog, which is why it's taken me so long to make this video, because originally I wasn't going to make this video. I wasn't going to start my recent reads until the next recent reads that you see, but here we are. I mean, you should really expect this from this channel at this point. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you have been reading, if you've read any of these, if you agree or disagree with any of my opinions. I'd love to hear about it, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.